I've got some great news to share about the game's development. First, I'll need to give you a little bit of backstory. Last year, I mentioned that it took 30 seconds to compile the game's code, and 30 seconds to load the school. What I didn't mention is that the game engine I was using was limited to 4 gigabytes of RAM and was frequently crashing whenever the game used more than 4 gigs of memory. These crashes were happening whenever I needed to reload the school, and it took 30 seconds for the game engine to restart after crashing. In other words, it was very common for me to wait a total of 90 seconds every time I wanted to make any sort of change to the game. I wish I could say that I'm a flawless robot who never feels emotions, never gets distracted, and never loses focus, but that's just not the case. I'm a flesh and blood human with just as many flaws as anybody else. Knowing that I would have to wait 90 seconds to make a single adjustment was severely frustrating and demotivating. As the compile times grew longer and longer, and the crashes grew more and more frequent, I stopped enjoying the process of working on the game, and I became far less productive. I started to avoid writing code, and kept myself busy with other tasks that didn't involve code. When you're just sitting there waiting for a minute and a half every time you need to make a single tiny change, you get bored. You get tempted to check Twitter or Reddit or YouTube for just a minute. But 1 minute turns into 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes, and then you're no longer focused on what you were previously doing. The 90-second wait times were not the only reason why progress on the game was slowing down, but the long periods of waiting were creating multiple other problems that each slowed down progress in a different way. Fortunately, because the cause of the problems was clear, the solutions were clear too. Converting the game from JavaScript to C# would speed up the compile times drastically, and upgrading the game engine from Unity 4 to Unity 5 would stop the crashing. I wanted to do these things, but porting the game to a different code language and a different game engine would take months of work. And I didn't want the game's development to come to a complete halt while I converted everything over to C# and Unity 5. So I didn't pursue those changes. But fortunately, someone was there to come to my rescue. In March of this year, I announced that I had begun a partnership with a company named TinyBuild. Since then, we've spent a lot of time talking with each other about the various ways they can help out with the game's development. For the past few months, they've been working on converting the game from JavaScript to C#, and from Unity 4 to Unity 5. And earlier this month, they completed the conversion. Unity 5 isn't limited to 4 gigabytes of RAM, so the game engine is no longer crashing whenever I reload the school. This means that I don't have to keep relaunching the game engine and reloading the school all the time. Additionally, C# compiles 6 times faster than JavaScript. In other words, I've gone from waiting 90 seconds to test a single change down to only 5 seconds. That's 18 times faster than before. So far, I've only had a few days to experiment with the Unity 5 build of the game, but I can already see a huge difference. Being able to make changes to the code within 5 seconds is an incredible feeling. The last time I was able to make changes this quickly was back in 2015, when I was known for making rapid progress with the game on a daily basis. I can't overstate how big of a difference this makes. It's like that scene from Dragon Ball, where Goku reveals that he's been wearing super heavy clothing that weighs 250 pounds as part of his training. When he takes off the heavy clothing, he's finally able to move at his true speed. That's exactly what it feels like to go from 90 seconds of waiting to 5 seconds of waiting. Before... after. But more importantly, my enthusiasm for working on the game is back. Now that working on the game is actually fun again, I'm no longer susceptible to falling into the traps of demotivation, procrastination, and distraction. Unity 5 has a few differences from Unity 4, so the conversion from 4 to 5 did create some new bugs. Some of these bugs were actually kind of funny, and others were just plain weird. Over the course of the past 6 days, I fixed as many bugs as I possibly could, and I think that the Unity 5 version of the game is now a perfect match for the Unity 4 build. The fact that I was able to make such a huge number of changes in less than a week is proof of how much faster I can work using C# and Unity 5, and it's all thanks to TinyBuild. Of course, TinyBuild doesn't intend to stop here. They're going to keep on giving me the help I need until the game is complete. For the past 3 years, I've avoided bringing any other programmers on board the project, because I was concerned that this would actually slow down the game's development. I would need to spend time introducing them to the code, showing them where the most important scripts are, explaining how the systems work, etc. Fortunately, I won't have to worry about that anymore. The programmer who was in charge of converting Yandere Sim from JavaScript to C# and from Unity 4 to Unity 5 now has multiple months of experience working with the game's code, and has become quite familiar with it. He's made a lot of notes on the areas of the code that he would like to improve, and he's already begun to make improvements throughout the game. In other words, we've skipped right past the phase where I need to spend weeks or months introducing a new programmer to the project, and now we're in the phase where I can benefit from having the assistance of a professional programmer who is familiar with my code and already has many ideas for how to help me out. TinyBuild and I have worked together to create a plan for the next few months. In short, I'll continue to work on Osana while TinyBuild goes through all of the scripts I've created so far and makes improvements wherever possible. I feel optimistic that I'll be able to make progress on Osana much more rapidly than ever before, thanks to the benefits of C# and Unity 5. And if I'm still struggling with Osana 1 month from now, then TinyBuild and I will reevaluate our plan so I can get the help I need with Osana. Before you get too excited, I'd like to remind you what I said at the beginning of this video. The long compile times and constant crashing are not the only factors that were affecting the game's development speed. C# and Unity 5 make a tremendous difference, but there are still other things that impact the amount of progress I'm able to make on the game. If you'd like to learn more about this subject, I recommend reading a couple of blog posts that I've written. I'll include a link to the 2 blog posts in the video description. There's one last thing I'd like to mention before I wrap up the video. June 30th was my birthday. On that day, I received an avalanche of birthday-themed fan art and countless supportive messages from people who wished me good luck with the game's development and thanked me for my work on the game. The Russian Yandere Sim community did something really special. They had a birthday fan art contest and created a video where a bunch of Russian fans wished me happy birthday and expressed their support for the game. That video was probably the nicest and sweetest thing that anyone has ever done for me. I spent July 1st to July 4th at Anime Expo. At the expo, there were 2 Yandere Sim meetups, where I got to meet lots of Yandere Sim fans. All of them were really cool people who were very fun to talk to and hang out with. Some of them even had birthday cards and birthday presents for me, including this handmade Yandere-chan doll. So cute! After receiving so much love and support from Yandere Sim fans all over the world, and now that the process of working on the game can go 18 times faster, I feel more motivated than ever before to work as hard as I can on Yandere Sim and make as much progress as humanly possible. That's my development update for the past 2 weeks. Now it's time to get back to work and see just how much I can accomplish under these new circumstances. Thank you for following the development of Yandere Simulator.